Welcome to the Word for the Week. We want to talk about what do you pray when you don't know what to say, and today I'm going to talk about the concept of a lament prayer. And these are the types of prayers that are dealing with crushing losses. When you're going through a trial and you're crying out to the Lord for help, these are not the kind of bland prayers that we have when things are going right. When things are going right, my prayers are along the lines of, Lord, thank you for this day. These are the kind of prayers when Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from the words of my groaning? These are the kind of prayers that I prayed when I was left alone and single and wondering, God, am I ever going to get married one day? Or the kind of prayers that I prayed when I was waiting for the call for an interview and got nothing. Or the times where I was wondering if Shelley and I, every single month, we were reminded that we couldn't have children. Or maybe these are the prayers that you might have when someone you love very dearly is experiencing death or sickness or illness. That's the kind of lament prayer when you are in distress and you're crying out to the Lord. In fact, when you take a look at all of the Psalms, about 1/3 of them are lament prayers. 1/3. And if 1/3 of them are lament prayers, that might be an indication of a template or a ratio of how many of our personal prayers to the Lord ought to be laments. The components of a lament are, number 1, you have a call to God. Number 2 is a complaint. Then 3, a request. A 4th is an expression of trust. And then finally, how they end. It's a vow of praise. And you might see 1 or 2 of these components missing on any of the lament psalms. Psalm 6:1, the verse opens up, O Lord, that's our call to God. One of the things I want you to see is that you can address God as God, but Lord takes it another step, and that's a little more personal because Lord is his name. That's the name who he chooses to reveal himself to. And so you want to address in a deep psalm something a little bit more intimate than just God. God has always been generic. Lord is more personal. Jesus more personal still because that is who he was revealed to us in the New Testament. And then lastly, maybe the next step of this is maybe you want to call God by a nickname or a title in this. And that's why we have phrases like Jehovah Jireh. And David complains, rebuke me not in your anger, nor discipline me in your wrath. David's complaining that he feels like he's being disciplined by God's anger. And during this time of distress, he thinks everything that God is doing is because God is upset at him. And that's the way it feels. He's just being honest and emotional and raw. Let's keep on reading about the other complaints that David has. Verse 2, be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled. My soul also is greatly troubled. But you, O Lord, how long? And these words, how long, is a great prayer for complaints. Psalm 13:1 says, how long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? One of the points we want to make here is that God invites us to bring our complaints to him. And you see it so many times in the Psalms. But you might be wondering, well, what's the difference between complaining and then grumbling, which got Israel in trouble quite frequently? And the answer to it is very simple. It's this. God invites you to complain to him. He does not want you to complain about him. That's different. And so you can address your complaints and your grumblings to him, and that's okay. But the moment that you do it to other people about God, well, that's when he starts getting a little bit angry. And so God invites you, direct your complaints and these feelings of angst to the Lord. Now David's going to move into the request. In verse 4, turn, O Lord, deliver my life. Save me for the sake of your steadfast love. So he's asking God to turn towards David because he feels like either, number 1, God's face is turned away from him, or number 2, that God is distant altogether and he's asking the Lord to turn towards him and be close again instead of distant. But it's a great request, and it's a word that you should use for the Lord as you're making these laments. God, Lord, turn towards me. You need to end with an affirmation of trust. The Lord has heard my plea. The Lord accepts my prayer. This is crucial. If you don't do this, it's just a complaint venting session. You have to have this part in it. And when you end after a lament, you end by saying, God, I am going to trust you. Even when I don't see how this is going to work out, I resign myself to your will. David in another psalm says, but I trust in your steadfast love. That's how he ends a lot of these lament prayers. Notice with Jesus, he even in the Garden of Gethsemane, he has this kind of template. He starts off by saying to other people, my soul is sorrowful to the point of death. That sounds like a complaint. And then he says to the Lord, he's making a request. If it be your will, please take this cup away from me. That's that request. But he ends with trust. Nevertheless, not my will be done, but your will be done. That is the difference, and that is how you must end every single lament psalm. So again, here's the 4 prayers that you can make in your lament. Number 1, have your call. Number 2, you can pray, God, how long do I have to endure this? You can have these complaints. And this is what somehow draws your soul to the Lord in this. And then after that, make your request. Lord, save me. Lord, do this. Lord, bless. Lord, show your favor. And then lastly, again, we have to end on trust. My hope is that as you lament, you would deepen your prayer life, that not every prayer has to be a happy prayer, and it's perfectly fine when things are going wrong, and God wants you to hear your heart being poured out so that your prayers of a lament are richer and deeper than ever before. And one final thing, I would love to be able to pray and lament with you. If you tell me what your request is, what you can do is go to the digital bulletin, and there's a link for prayer requests on that. And if there's something that I can do to help pray with you during this time, we can fast together, we can pray and lament together. I would be glad to do that. Thank you so much. We will see you soon.